when small, inexpensive drones began striking vehicles, radar sites, and supply columns in Ukraine, observers first called it improvisation. Quickly, however, those images became proof of a deeper change. Kamikaze drones, loitering munitions, and fast FPV attackers had moved from ad hoc tools into doctrine. Cheap, agile, and expendable, they have forced armies to rethink armor, logistics, and air defenses. What started as field modifications and volunteer efforts has grown into an industrialized ecosystem that reshapes tactical choices and challenges long-held assumptions about the value of expensive platforms. Over the next short while, we'll trace how these systems evolved, how they are used, how defenders adapt, and what it means for future wars. Small drones were first fielded as scouts, affordable ways to see and verify targets. The leap to kamikaze use was pragmatic. Mount a warhead, guide to impact, deny the enemy mobility or sensors. In Ukraine, necessity accelerated that shift. Component availability, open-source designs, and battlefield pressure turned experiments into routine tactics. What followed was bottom-up adoption. Small units and volunteer workshops iterating quickly until effective strike methods emerged and spread across forces. Kamikaze drone covers a range. Modified commercial quadcopters carrying shaped charges, purpose-built loitering munitions with longer endurance, and high-speed FPV attack drones flown like motorcycles in the sky. Each fills a role: close precision hits, suppression of air defenses, interdiction of logistics, and harassment of rear areas. Their common trait is expendability. Losing a drone is often far cheaper than launching a missile or risking aircraft, and that economy changes how commanders wage battle. Ukraine's drone revolution wasn't only technological, it was social and industrial. Startups, volunteer labs, and local shops mass-produced frames, batteries, and warheads, while field crews fed rapid feedback into redesign cycles. International donations of components and commercial parts shortened development time. This distributed production model, fast, iterative, resilient, let units adapt designs to real conditions far faster than traditional defense procurement allows. Alone, a drone can disable optics or a fuel tank. In numbers, they create dilemmas. Swarms and mixed-profile attacks force defenders to choose where to spend expensive interceptors, stretch air defenses thin, and slow logistics because every convoy must be hardened or covered. FPV drones punch gaps through which artillery or missiles follow. Loiterers hold key terrain at risk. The aggregate effect is not always a single decisive strike, but constant pressure that degrades tempo and increases the cost of maneuver. Kamikaze drones invert attrition math. Attackers use low-cost expendables to force defenders to burn high-cost interceptors and resources. This asymmetry pressures procurement toward layered, often expensive countermeasures, and drives demand for jammers, interceptors, and hardened infrastructure. Small attackers gain disproportionate leverage when defenders must prioritize protecting critical items with costly systems. Defenders have adapted with a mix of kinetic and non-kinetic tools. Short-range guns and interceptors, interceptor drones, jamming and spoofing of navigation links, hardening and dispersal of assets, and improved early detection through sensor fusion. Electronic warfare, in particular, is crucial. Breaking data links and GPS guidance sharply reduces many kamikaze systems' effectiveness. Those measures work, but they require investment, doctrine changes, and constant updates as attackers evolve. What sets the Ukrainian case apart from many historical examples is the speed at which small-scale industrialization occurred. Rather than relying solely on state defense factories, Ukraine's drone war leveraged small workshops, volunteer tech hubs, and startup accelerators to produce thousands of systems rapidly. Iteration cycles shortened from months to days. Field feedback reached designers, changes were implemented, and improved systems were redeployed. This model, decentralized, rapid, and resilient, reduces single points of failure and makes suppression by aerial strikes or blockades ineffective. For future conflicts, the lesson is stark. Resilience can be built through distributed production and rapid learning loops, not just centralized industrial might. The rise of kamikaze drones raises thorny legal and ethical questions. Distinguishing legitimate military targets from civilian infrastructure becomes harder when small drones strike near populated areas. Attribution is also difficult. Small commercially obtained systems obscure provenance, complicating efforts to hold actors accountable under international law. Furthermore, The democratization of lethal drone capability invites non-state actors and proxies into more deadly roles. Responding with proportionality and restraint in such tangled environments is legally and morally complex. Policymakers and jurists are now wrestling with how existing law of armed conflict applies to the use of inexpensive, autonomous strike platforms and what norms, transparency, or export controls might mitigate the worst excesses while preserving legitimate military necessity. Looking ahead, two trends will matter most. First, autonomy and AI will make swarms more effective. Distributed decision-making, onboard target discrimination, and cooperative behaviors will let swarms adapt in real time and continue missions despite partial losses or jamming. Second, miniaturization and energy advances will increase endurance and payload options, making small platforms more lethal and harder to detect. Combined, these trends could create systems that are not merely guided flying bombs, but coordinated, resilient, and intelligent formations that execute complex tactics. The moral and strategic questions will intensify as swarms gain capabilities that blur the line between automated tools and independent lethal. Ukraine's Kamikaze drone swarms are more than a tactical novelty. They represent a structural shift in how wars are fought at the tactical and operational levels. Cheap, adaptable, and widely available, these systems have rewritten the playbook for saturation, precision harassment, and industrialized small arms effects on the battlefield. They force defenders into costly countermeasures, remodel logistics and mission planning, and accelerate the diffusion of new military capabilities to a broad set of actors. But they also invite new ethics, legal debates, and the specter of proliferation. The conflict in Ukraine has taught militaries around the world a hard lesson. In the age of drones, innovation can come from a small workshop as readily as from a major arms plant. And when it does, the rules of war change fast. Policymakers, militaries, and technologists must therefore adapt quickly, not only to harness these tools responsibly, but to ensure that their spread does not make the world a far more dangerous place. Drone strikes create vivid, shareable footage that shapes morale and public perception. A single filmed hit can have outsized political and psychological effects far beyond the physical damage. That visual economy has become part of how both sides wage influence campaigns, affecting recruitment, funding, and international sympathy. The spread of lethal small drones raises legal and ethical problems. Target discrimination near populated areas is harder. Attribution becomes murkier, and non-state actors can obtain increasingly capable strike tools. The low barrier to entry accelerates proliferation, making export controls and international norms urgent but difficult to enforce. Future swarms will get smarter. Onboard autonomy, cooperative behaviors, better target discrimination, and longer endurance will make them more resilient to jamming and fragmentation. As energy and miniaturization improve, these small systems will grow more lethal and harder to detect. The next decade will likely see more automation, tighter integration with artillery and missile systems, and an ongoing arms race between swarm tactics and layered countermeasures. Ukraine's Kamikaze drones demonstrate how low-cost technologies and decentralized innovation can rewrite battlefield economics and tactics. They do not make heavy armor obsolete, but they raise the cost of operating without robust countermeasures and change how commanders plan movement, supply, and defense. Policymakers and militaries must adapt quickly, rethinking procurement, doctrine, and international norms, because the rules of war on land are already changing in ways that will echo far beyond one conflict. If you found this shorter deep dive helpful, subscribe for more concise documentaries on emerging warfare trends. Hit the bell to get notified, and tell us in the comments which part you want next. A focused explainer on counter-drone tech, a timeline of Ukrainian drone innovation, or a scenario analysis for future conflicts. Like, share, and stay informed. These developments matter for security and policy around the world.